Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of White Coat Chronicles. So it is currently Friday, February 7th, and this Tuesday, I posted my podcast to Apple Podcasts, and I am just so excited. I honestly wasn't planning on posting it that day. I don't even know when I was planning on posting it, but I submitted it to Apple Podcasts a while ago and I just never checked my email. And I did on Tuesday and I saw that it was approved and I was like, oh shit, let me post this. And not gonna lie, as much as this is so exciting and I love doing this, it's just so fun for me. I love talking. I also, though, I posted on my Instagram story and I was just so nervous, just thinking of certain people listening to it. And I was like, oh God, am I cringing? Is this weird? But then I just realized, whatever, I am doing this. So today we are talking about my gap year, post-grad, and definitely medically focused, I guess, what I did or what I'm doing for this gap year, but also just socially how it is so weird being out of college and just talking about it, because I feel like so many people make post-grad just look so glamorous, but it isn't for me, at least. Maybe it is for some, but I just want to talk about it. But before we get into the deep stuff, randomly just want to mention 2 obsessions I have right now because it's just all I'm thinking about. First one, Feminine Nomenon, the song by Miss Chapel. She won new best artist or new and becoming artist, the Grammys recently. And I knew her most popular song, but I found Feminine Nomenon in a remix. And I was like, what is this song? What is this word? And you know, when you just find a song and it just hits all of your senses, and I just can't stop playing it. I cannot stop playing it and I love it. Next obsession is this one med school influencer I found, juliarose.md on Instagram. Oh my gosh. I will give the stalkers that find who you like based on what you look at a lot of credit for this. She is so cool, just such a vibe. Basically, she is in her residency right now. She graduated from BU. And her whole niche thing is that as well as being a doctor, she goes to raves every weekend. And it was actually crazy because one of her reels, she was talking about how a lot of people have reported her to her residency program because she's wearing promiscuous clothing on the weekend and just doing things that a doctor, especially a female doctor, should never be doing. And she never ended up getting removed from her residency program because she just advocated for herself. And I was just reading her first tagged post or pin post on her Instagram, and she's just saying I love being a doctor so much, but I also love going out and dancing, and it shouldn't affect how good of a doctor I am with what I do in my free time. And I'm just love the vibe. Okay, anyway, let's do high, low, piccolo. Okay, high of the week. I think it's a just kind of summary thing, not a certain event, but just feeling happier these days. I don't know what has clicked for me, but something has, and I just feel more free. I don't even know how to explain it, but I think I'm just realizing that this stage of life that I'm in is only temporary, and it's the 1 year of my life that I don't have to study for anything. And in the beginning of my gap year, I feel I was just always making things for myself to do, just adding so much to my to-do list to feel productive. And something just clicked for me recently, and I was I can sleep in. I can stay up late watching a TV show. I don't have anything to study for. So there's my high. My low is that I messed something up at work on Wednesday Basically, I am a medical assistant. I'm going to get more into this as the episode goes on. And part of my job is at the end of the day, I have to lock all the notes for the patients so the claims get sent to insurance. I forgot to lock 5 patients. I don't know how it happened, but if you do like anything wrong, it's just the end of the world at my job. And Thursday, when I was driving into the office, I got a text from the doctor and she's like, Tori, you didn't lock the claims. So no claims were sent to insurance. And just driving into work, getting that text, I'm like, oh God, here we go. And when I got to work, I just was like, hey, I saw the text. I'm so sorry. I guess I forgot to lock it. And she was like, okay, it's fine. And then my coworker said to me at the end of the day, like, oh my God, she was so mad. And I just like know what she was probably saying about me. I don't know. But there's a random low. And Piccolo, to stay on par with Piccolo being a random thing, I got Dunkin' Donuts today. I haven't got Dunkin' in so long. I'm normally a Starbucks gal, but I went in and I forgot. I got like brown sugar latte or brown sugar coffee or something. And I got it, went to the car and I was sipping it. And I'm like, I just don't like this. This is so random. And I will never be the girl that like order something and if you don't like it, you ask the waiter or waitress to bring it back, or if you don't like your nail color, you ask to remove it. But I was just like, this was supposed to be my treat for the day. I don't like it. So I went back in the store and I was like, I'm so sorry. I hate to be this person, but I just don't like this. And she basically explained to me that certain syrups are like dairy based and they have a whole different taste, and then certain syrups aren't. And she's like, I totally get it. Like, I don't like that syrup. I only like caramel or like French vanilla or whatever. And I'm like, wait, so it's valid that I don't like it. And she gave me a new one. So, yep. Alrighty, let's get into the episode now. All right, so I'm starting my gap year little timeline chapter in May because that is when I graduated from college. So my college has this tradition where everyone goes to Myrtle Beach the week after graduation, or at least that was the case for us. And it's kind of nice because grad week is so emotional and the whole time you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to see these people again. But it's always nice to have that trip to look forward to and like, okay, this might be our last time on campus together, but we're going to be together in another space in a little bit. I didn't go to Myrtle because of my MCAT, and it's just one of like the many things that I sacrificed to apply to med school, and I'm sure so many other people that are applying or have applied can relate to this. There's just certain things you can't do. So I didn't go, and I took my MCAT the end of May, and it's so funny because the place that I took it at, it was in New York City. It is literally a block away from where my 2 friends live right now. So anytime I go and visit them or stay with them for the weekend in the city, I pass the place I took my first MCAT, and I get the same terrible feeling every time. And all right, so then at the end of that test, I met up with the boy that I was dating at the time, and we had a really nice, cute date. But at the end of the day, I was like, all right, like, I want to go out. I'm celebrating and I need a drink. I just finished the hardest exam ever, for me, at least. And he just didn't want to. So on the train ride home, I broke up with him. And yes, I'm aware I'm fully psychotic for that. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is the point of this podcast, is to be so for real. So that's how my gap year started off. I couldn't get over that I broke up with him, but I think I just was like not in a good place. The 6 months leading up to the MCAT, I was just so unhappy, and apparently that's all I needed to be like, okay, yeah, this isn't working. But he was a real champ about it, and I have nothing bad to say. Now, fast forward, we are submitting our application, doing all the secondaries. I wrote my personal statement while in Florida. I was in Florida for a little bit in the beginning of the summer, and Like it was supposed to be a family trip. And I literally just remember being in the hotel room the entire time writing my application because it just happened to be around the same time. But you got to do what you got to do. And I submitted it. And then after that, it's really just a waiting game. And you wait to get secondaries. But what I did was just look up school secondaries that I applied to and pre-wrote them. Highly, highly suggest anyone else do that. Most people know that, so this isn't anything new, but it really did help me a lot. And I guess while I was waiting for everything, I was applying for jobs. I mentioned this in the past episode, but just to catch anyone up that didn't listen, my whole plan for my gap year was to be in the UK at the University of Reading on a Fulbright grant and getting my Master's of Food and Nutritional Science. That didn't happen. So I was kind of scrambling at the beginning of the summer to find a job, but I started off working as a scribe, or at least doing the training to work as a scribe. And I liked the training. I thought it was interesting. They did really expose you to like the basics of medicine, just so you kind of knew what was going on in a hospital whenever you're scribing for a doctor. But while I was training for it, I was still applying to other jobs. And then I saw this one job and I got an interview for it. But at this time, I was already like, okay, I'm going to scribe, but let's just see how it goes. And the doctor gave me the job like on the spot. And I was so excited. I'm like, whoa, first off, I was making way more than I would have scribing. So automatically I was like, yes, I'm taking it. And little did we know what we were getting ourselves into. Looking back, I wouldn't change anything. I'm happy I took this job and didn't do scribing. Just first off, because it's actually crazy the hourly rate you get as a scribe. It's not right, especially in New York State where the minimum wage is so high. And just like random side note, I feel like pre-med students, our whole pre-med career, we're so used to doing things for the good of our application or to be exposed to medicine. And like, I'm definitely all for that, but we don't make money. Like, I made most of my money doing other random jobs not related to medicine, because any jobs while you're in college that are related to medicine, you just don't get paid anything. And they know that they can do that because all pre-med students are just looking for experience. And scribing was kind of like that. With scribing, you did have the opportunity to make more money after a certain amount of time, but this job the starting hourly rate was so much better. So that's the first reason that I'm happy. But also, I've learned a lot and it's made me a stronger person, this job, but the beginning of it was rocky. Let me just tell you guys my first day at work. So my first day was July 1st. I was so excited the night before, getting ready for the job, laid out my scrubs, love that I got to wear scrubs every day, like random thing, but I go into work, get there nice and early, and there's just like chaos in the office. So the doctor pulls me into her little office and she was like, yeah, Tori, the two other people that work here just quit. And I was like, what? So, yep, I got to this new job that I was so excited about, and it was just me with the doctor. The medical assistant before me quit, the receptionist quit, and what did she do? She brought in her high school grandson and his friend to work the front desk, and me, new Tori with no training, as a medical assistant. Now, first off, I have come to realize how important a receptionist is at a doctor's office. There is so much that goes into making a doctor's office work smoothly. First off, the schedule, like knowing how to schedule, knowing your patients, knowing which patient's gonna never only take 15 minutes, knowing which patients come late, knowing which patients cancel. Like, it's just obviously all things that come with experience. And there's also faxing. I feel like the medical field is one of the only fields that still use fax, but everything we do in terms of scripts, x-rays, MRIs, medications need to be faxed. And if you have people at the front desk kind of BSing and not doing it, it just, it's not good. And me over here, like, what am I doing? Like, I had no idea what I was doing. But we survived. Time went on. And honestly, I do believe the best way to learn is to just kind of be thrown into it. In terms of medical settings, I think there should be training, but in general, I think you do learn best when you're just kind of put into the practice and told to learn as you go. And that's what I did. But it was rocky. In the beginning, it was rocky. The doctor was super, super stressed. She had a lot going on, especially with her practice. Like, it was literally being run by all new people. I would be freaking out too. And she let her stress out on us, which I guess is understandable, but just wasn't good for me. I swear the first couple weeks, I cried every day when I came home from work. Certain times that I got in trouble in the office, it took everything in me to not start crying in front of her. And for anyone that knows me, like, I just don't cry. I think there's something wrong with me. I don't cry inside movies. I don't cry when I'm upset. There's definitely something wrong with me. But I would cry about anything she would say to me. Oh my God, I was so sensitive. But I think I was just so scared. And also, part of this was I wanted to be good because I needed a recommendation letter to add to my application, and I was planning on submitting my recommendation letter later in this cycle, and people do that. I guess it would be better if I submitted my application with a recommendation letter, but that just didn't work. So while I'm working, trying to do well with this job, I'm also trying to have a relationship with this doctor who's, yes, my boss, but also someone I want to write me a good recommendation letter. So I just was putting all this pressure on myself, and it was a toxic environment. Like, if I would do anything wrong, screamed at, yelled at, but anytime she was nice to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, she loves me so much. Yay, I'm so happy. And there's a lot of things that went on and still go on at this practice that are probably illegal to say. And it's really sad being exposed to the realities of medicine whenever medicine mixes with business, because as much as doctors and anyone in the health field hate to admit this, it is a job and you want to make money. People think doctors are these oh, I only care about the well-being of patients and that's it. And I hope all doctors care about that, but it's also their job and they need to make money. And it's just kind of sad seeing the sacrifices in terms of patient care that are made to make money. And I can't sit here saying it's terrible how it works, because I don't know. I'm not a doctor yet. I do know I don't want to have my own practice though, which may sound silly to say because that's what everyone knows to do to be successful, but I just don't want to do that. I am not business minded. I don't want to be constantly thinking about work when I wake up and when I go to bed. I want to be there for patients and not have to worry about the business stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But I'm glad I was exposed to that and still am being exposed to that. Also, another crazy thing I'm learning about is how terrible insurance is. I can't believe I'm talking about this now, because I just didn't have a clue about insurance and how it's so intertwined with how doctors practice nowadays. But brief summary, insurance sucks. And in America, where we just are supposed to have everything, you would think we'd find a better way to handle insurance, but we haven't. And it's sad. Some of these patients really need MRIs because they have debilitating pain in their shoulders. They can't do things, their knees, and they don't get approved. And we have to finagle all of these things so they do get approved. And it's what's right here, what's not? I don't know. But with all that being said, I'm happy I'm learning about it because I wouldn't be exposed to this if I didn't take this job. So we're looking on the bright side. And another thing, during my interview, they asked, like, what's something you want to see change in medicine? And I talked about insurance. And I feel like so many people would say something else about, I don't know. There's a lot of answers you could say for that question. But I think the doctor who was there for the interview was impressed that I knew about insurance. And I feel like it's just a topic that all doctors can agree and relate to and are super passionate about because they're all struggling with it. So I'm happy I got to bring that into my interview. Anyway, I want to keep going with this gap year. So there was a point where I did type up my 2-week resignation letter. I can't remember back to what was like the tip of the iceberg for me, but I was just like, nope. I hate this job. I wasn't questioning like, oh, do I not like medicine? I was just like, this job ain't it. Like, I'm so unhappy. I don't like it. So while I was, or I guess did type up my resignation letter, had it in my bag, I literally brought it to work with me every day just in case. I was also applying to other jobs. But the problem was I didn't know what I was going to be doing next year. I still didn't hear back from any schools, literally crickets, which is another super annoying part about your gap year before, or I guess after you applied to medical school. It's just like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know what I'm doing next year. So when I was applying to jobs and going to interviews, I just had to be transparent. I was like, look, I applied to medical school. I don't know if I'll get in. But that put a timeline on me. Like, that meant that if I got hired somewhere, I could only be there for 6 months possibly because it was like the middle of the year. So that made it hard. And I found this job that I absolutely loved. Loved the interview, loved the people at the office. And they were like, look, we would take you, like, you're exactly what we want, but it just makes no sense for us to hire you. And I'm like, yeah, fair. So Tori had to make the big girl decision to suck it up and just stay. It was honestly just so hard though. And I hate the rep that our generation gets in terms of the workforce. Like, I don't know, anyone around this age, maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, but our elders are always saying to us like, ugh, your generation has no work ethic anymore. Like, what's going on with this generation? And I just kind of felt like me wanting to quit this job because I was unhappy and didn't like how I was getting treated kind of fit into that stereotype. And I was like, ugh, Tori, like, come on. And I talked to my parents about it so much and they were pretty divided. And I got into a lot of fights with them about it. My mom was like, no, like, quit. I totally get it. And my dad's like, no, like, you committed to something, you have to stick with it. And it just sucked. I felt like I was just asking everyone, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I just ended up taking time to think about it. And I was like, Tori, you don't know what you're doing next year. When you find out about medical school, then maybe you can make a better decision. But this is not the time to quit your job. And then happily enough, I got accepted and my whole mindset has changed because, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I just was able to really digest the fact that this is temporary. And I ended up really liking the job after I came to that realization. And now I am happy there. I wouldn't say it's the best job in the world. There are days that I'm like, ew, I hate this. And there's a lot of things I dislike. But for now, it's good. I'm learning so much. And I just feel like working in a medical office has just made me so much more excited to go into the medical field. So overall, happy where I am with the job. But I just wanted to give like the real story behind it because I feel like so many people post-grad, and this is like not just in the medical field as well, but people just like gas up their jobs and it's like, oh yeah, I'm loving it. But for my closest friends, at least, like we all just talk about how your first job after post-grad, you put so much pressure on, but so many people aren't happy because we're like right back at the bottom of the chain of the working force. And it's hard, but it's definitely different whenever you're in your gap year, going to medical school the year after, because everything just feels temporary. So you have to kind of just figure it out on your own. But as I started to figure it out, I just became more adjusted to it. I joined a gym right next to the doctor's office. I got to know the area better. And I will say, post-grad, your job just becomes like such a big part of your life, which I'm sure like anyone working, it just is. And it's interesting to go from college, where I don't think anyone would say like their major is their life. Maybe they would, but I just felt like more of a person in college. And now post grad, I feel like I am the job. And I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but if it does, yeah, I feel like that. But anyway, I want to go a little bit outside of working and this whole gap year post grad stage of my life, and really kind of talk about what it's like living at home. So I don't expect everyone to relate to this. Maybe you are lucky and are not living at home, but I don't know. I need to carefully tread on this topic, because I will acknowledge, like, I'm so lucky I get to live at home. I'm so lucky I live in an area of the country where it's so fun. Like, I'm 30 minutes outside of New York City, so I do have a lot of opportunities. I love where I'm from. It's not like this small hometown where everyone knows each other. I live in a pretty big city outside of New York City. But with that being said, I'm just talking about my experience, and it has not been fun for me. Honestly, living at home after living with 6 girls in college, it's just different. And look, I love my family so much. I love the friends that I have at home, but anyone else living at home right now can just acknowledge as well that it is an adjustment. The privacy is no longer there. You are living under your parents' roof, and you have to adjust to their lifestyle, the times they wake up, the times they go to sleep. And at times, I feel like I've taken 2 steps back in my life. Like, I feel like a child again. But I also will say it's a good thing in terms of I get a lot of my meals made for me. There are certain times where my parents will do my laundry and I'll come home and it's done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yay. So there are good things, but at times I'm just like, ugh, I don't like it. But again, it's temporary. So we're dealing with it, and I've made the most of it in terms of living situations. I used to live upstairs. Me and Katie, my little sister, had like a Jack and Jill bedroom. We shared a bathroom. But in this house, we also have a finished basement with its own bathroom. So I made an agreement with my parents. I'm like, I will pay for all the new furniture. I was obsessed with Facebook Marketplace, found so much stuff, literally got a bed spring, and a mattress for like less than $200, which was amazing. So we made an agreement, and I moved downstairs, and I'm able to get like in and out of the house just through the basement. So it has given me a little sense of independence, and I'm super grateful for that. So anyone else living at home and going through the same thing as me, I feel for you, I feel for us. But my only piece of advice is like, we gotta look on the bright side. We're saving money, we're getting our groceries and meals. Just there are perks, but anyone not living at home, I'm jealous of you. Alrighty, now the last part of this gap year post-grad episode I want to talk about is how it's affected me socially. So I'm like kind of scared to talk about this, but I again want to be honest. So a big part of the beginning of my gap year was this new boy that I started dating. And if you know, you know. I really messed up. Really, really, really messed up. This relationship just basically shouldn't have happened. I don't want to say it was a waste of my time, because I do believe everything happens for a reason and we need to go through certain things, but this one relationship just wasn't it. But I do think I needed to go through it to learn a lot about myself. So you can like hear my voice. Like So dated this kid and it was great in the beginning. I, like, for the first time in a while, was like obsessed with someone. And I feel like lots of the relationships I've been in, I haven't been like fully obsessed with a person. I'm just kind of like, all right, yeah, I like this. But I actually really like this guy. And he was just different from the type of guy I usually would be with. Very quirky, very artsy, like, just, I liked those parts of him because they brought out the quirky, silly sides of me, and it was a nice breath of fresh air, but that didn't last very long. Another huge part of this whole relationship was what it did to my friendship with my best friends at home, and it wasn't good. While I was dating this kid, I basically like wasn't friends with my friends from home, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And honestly, it's still like a sore topic because I feel like my friends from home, we've just gotten to a point where we could talk about it and be like, yeah, that sucked. This was what was wrong about it, but this is how we're moving forward, instead of just like not addressing it. But thankfully, we're all good now. But I was a classic like girl that messed things up with their friends for a guy, and I cannot believe I did that. To this day, I am mad at myself, but working through that in therapy. But I guess how this relationship, it started to turn bad just as the time went on. One part of it was that he didn't have a job. I did. I was sugar mommy for a little bit, and if it wasn't that, it was his parents' money, and I just hate that. Like, I am a 22-year-old, like, at that point, I was going to med school, and it's like, who am I dating? Like, come on. And I would bring it up, and anytime he would pay for stuff, he would be like, oh my God, like, that was so expensive. And I'm just like, okay, well, then don't pay for it. But that's like a superficial thing that was wrong with the relationship. Other things were just like, I felt like I really put in a lot in terms of my emotions and vulnerability, and I just didn't get that in return. And there were like 3 different times where we had conversations about breaking up, and he convinced me not to. And it finally got to a point where it was my alumni weekend, and he just like, I don't know, wouldn't text me and be like, hey, like, how are you doing? Like, how's the weekend? It would just be like, I just came to this realization about the world and like the planet. I don't know. Side note, I will always remember this. My birthday, I had like a little get together with my family, him and my 3. And we were all dancing, having fun, little drunky tipsy. The whole time he was on the couch looking for this stupid comet that was like in our area. I don't know. And this is where the quirkiness was just too much for me. Sorry, just too much. Get off your phone and dance with my family. Like, but no, it was everyone stop. Like, we need to go find the comet. Like, bro, this is my birthday. Just stop. I hope I don't sound too much, but like, whatever. This is the real things that bother me. The tip of the iceberg, guys. This isn't actually the tip of the iceberg, but just I need to include this part. My friends will laugh whenever you hear this. For my birthday, I will say he got me some nice things, but one thing he got me was this photo painting of a black cat. Just like a little pause. So, if you know me, I am not a cat person. I personally like hate cats. Sorry. If I really like Shannon's cat because her cat was like a dog, but cats just irk me. I don't like cats. You obviously never listened to me if you got me a cat painting. And that was that. I was like, this guy doesn't know me. He doesn't listen to me. And my birthday was right before alumni weekend. Left for an alumni weekend, and like I was saying, just being weird. And while I was at my college, I broke up with him, and it sucked. I kind of do wish I waited because I feel like I ruined my weekend, but it just had to happen. And I think if it did happen in person again, it would be the same pattern of him being like, no, let's work towards this, blah, blah, blah. So it happened, and we haven't talked since. Anytime I go through a breakup, I unfollow, block, like, I don't know. I just don't want any temptation to text again. I don't want to see what they're doing. I don't want them to see what I'm doing. And it honestly works out pretty well. But I don't know. I still don't know if I would do that over because of the detrimental effect it had on my friendships. But again, it really kind of just woke me up, and I was like, Tori, stop dating these guys that are just not good. Like, they're not good for you. I've never been in like a toxic relationship or anything, but I think my standards have just always been low, and I'm in my single era right now, and my standards are high. A rando walks up to me at the bar. If you aren't my type, goodbye. I'm not entertaining you. And as easy as that sounds, like, I just feel like my whole dating life, I would always be like, oh, just nice talking to everyone. But it's like, no, I've gotten to the stage of my life where I know what I want, and I gotta just wait till I see it. With that being said, like, can we just address Hinge? I am just not going to do it as of now because I live in my hometown, and I don't really want to see, like, if I were to do it, I'd put New York City as my location maybe to meet people there, but I don't know. There's part of me that also just wants to meet organically. I know society as a whole has kind of shifted away from that, and it's like, look, this is the way things are now. People are busy. But I don't know. I'm kind of anti-Hinge right now, and if you aren't, I get it. Like, majority of my friends are on Hinge, and I love hearing the stories, but I just don't think I'm going to do it. And I don't think I'm going to be with anyone for a while because I need a break. I need a break from men. And I broke up with the most recent boyfriend. I feel like everything just started happening for me. I had more time on my hands. I just got really into the things that I'm passionate about outside of work, like this silly little podcast. I got another job. I just fixed my relationships with my girlfriends, and all of those things needed to happen, and it made my gap year 5 million times better because I had the things surrounding me that made me happy. So I guess we had to go through that to come to that realization, but I really do feel like I'm in a good place right now. With that being said, there are some days that just ain't it, and there are some days that I'm so happy, but that's kind of the real spiel of everything that has happened up until now in this gap year. It's February, so I have a couple months left. I have some travel plans. One random thing that I want to do is go to Greenland. I don't know. I'll get into that more later, but I'm just excited that my mind has finally allowed me to realize, like, Tori, have fun, and not fun in terms of like go out all the time, but just like be silly. Like, I just feel so much lighter these days because I'm not studying for anything. And look, I'm excited to start studying again. I honestly love studying and I love learning, but I'm just trying to make the most of this time of my life now. So yeah, that episode was interesting. I've kind of caught you guys up into where I am right now, and I'm so excited to be recording this and just to have finally posted my podcast. I've wanted to for so long, but honestly, I have been afraid. I've totally been afraid of what people are going to say, but I just realized, screw it, we're doing it, and it's so much fun for me. But anyway, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys next episode. Okay, bye.